Hey guys, unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, the dream match of MJF versus Nick Nemeth will not be going down May 1st in Melville. Both talents, MJF and Nick, will still be in action that night. MJF has issued an open challenge here at Creative Pro, as well as Nick Nemeth taking on Bear Bronson for the very first time. Now, if you have a problem with this change, you're feel free to refunds on our website, but we really hope you join us for the biggest Creative Pro show of all time. MJF and Nick Nemeth will both be doing pre-show meet and greets as planned. We hope to see you there.
People often talk about tribalism, and it truly takes away from the fun of professional wrestling. You know, if it's not the snowflakes who are super tribalistic about their company that doesn't really see them as a person, more as a number, or a price tag purchaser or something like that. They don't really mean anything, but then they'll go and be a diehard hardcore fan, with the Cheetos puffs and goons to these women's wrestlers whenever they have the cameraman be perverts. It is pathetic to a lot of degrees. But this whole TNA supercard thing with it was AEW talent and TNA talent about to have something going on to where they had matches. I think it was going to be MJF versus Dolph Ziggler, or even Moose is pulled from something. We're going to have. I was really looking forward to Leon Slater versus Ricochet. But here's what Gail Kim had to say about things because they are independent contractors, that they're not employees, they're independent contractors. It grinds my gears to the point where, also, speaking of grinding the gears, I waited till after TNA Rebellion, because I wanted to see the reaction of the audience, when Carlos Silva walked out. And of course, this happened April 8th and it's currently April 12th, but I just wanted to see how he was going to be received, and the crowd booed him out of the building. They did not want to see Carlos Silva whatsoever. they gave him the Pat McAfee treatment. It's bad. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's above him. I'm pretty sure the call came from above Carlos Silva, but Carlos Silva is going to take the brunt of it. But for them to do this and then them to say it's pretty sure it's contractual conflicts. That's what I keep hearing, is contractual conflicts, because Moose was supposed to be at the Multiverse show at Maple Leaf. It was April 18th when he was supposed to be there. Shaping up to be a major indie showdown has fallen apart after TNA reportedly pulled talent from booking due to partner conflicts. It's never going to really stop. I just don't understand. And then apparently Tony Khan was going to buy WWE for $6 billion, but then Endeavor bought them out for $8 billion. And I'm not gonna lie, I kind of want to see what Tony Khan would have done with WWE compared to Endeavor and TKO, because it's woo. But yeah, it's a disaster. It's a huge disaster. And then we go here to MJ. Let's see, go here. Yeah, so even Dolph Ziggler was talking about how he's devastated and crushed that he's not going to get to be in the ring with MJF and battle the Big Hebrew. But something that I find kind of funny is that, the AEW championship and WWE championship were defended on the same show. Coincidentally, it was the WWE ID title and the AEW World Championship being defended on the same show. But I don't think that really counts. People involved in the situation believe that WWE was the one to block TNA talent from facing Young. Yeah, I'm pretty sure also, either it's because, the never-ending grudge between the two companies, even though Tony Khan countless times has said, yeah, I'm down to work with WWE. And then WWE's like, no, they're a pissant t-shirt company. I just don't see the point in constantly doing this war. I really want. I wonder when it's going to end. But I think either it's an ego thing to where they say, yeah, we're not going to have any AEW stars go over on our stars, even if they're TNA. And then I'm like, well, the thing is, the last time I checked, TNA hasn't been looking the best against NXT talent either. I remember one point in where all NXT stars were holding TNA gold. They kept having the NXT talent go over on. Now, mind you, these were people who are only wrestling for like 3 years in the NXT developmental system, going over on people who were wrestling 20 years on the Indies, and they were TNA world champions, even for the women's division. And I'm like, it's kind of hypocrisy. So you mean to tell me that WWE's like, no, AEW can't go over on our stars. Only our developmental people who didn't even discover wrestling until they, came across an ad for a recruit or something. That's total bull. That's a double standard if I've ever heard it before, man. That is crazy. Oh man. But they are, man, that is insane. That is crazy. So yeah, according to Sean Ross Sapp, Carlos Silva tells me that TNA wrestlers have been pulled from shows due to partner conflicts. Yeah, so it's just an AEW, WWE thing. I mean, I'm not gonna lie though, they could have made so much money, putting their stupid one-sided beef aside, because as I keep saying before, even MVP Bobby Lashley, the whole Hurt Syndicate said that when it comes to tribalism, none of the wrestlers are tribalistic. They're all friends. It's the fans, and it's true. Now, just like Ricky Starks and even Stevie Richards have said, tribalism is fun to an extent, but the companies being petty like this is ridiculous. There's so much money that can be made from cross promotion matches, and they're not even employees, as I said. Even as Gail Kim said, they are independent contractors, which is why I find it interesting that they keep screwing themselves out of perfect opportunities to make big moments. Because you mean to tell me that if they had an ultra super indie show, they wouldn't make money from Seth Rollins versus Kenny Omega, like or a Braun Breaker versus a Wardlow, or Tiffany Stratton, no, a Julia versus a Tiffany Stratton versus a Chris Statlander, or a Nia Jax versus a Nyla Rose, or hell, even throw in even Zarya versus Willow Nightingale, something like that. I don't know. Oh, a Powerhouse Hobbs versus a PCO. Actually, PCO is gone. He left TNA a long time ago. What the hell am I talking about? But yeah, like dream matches like that, or even throw in a Will Ospreay versus a Seth Rollins, because that was something that I used to want to see in 2019, back in the days when Seth Rollins would embarrass himself daily on Twitter, just cool dream matches like that. Like, they're really screwing themselves over. Or even give the NXT tag team some AEW competition on one of these indie shows. I don't, it's all these partner conflicts garbage that's only being enacted by them, because AEW is always down to work with other people. That's why Tony Khan lets his people go to the indies and stuff. I mean, Tony Khan constantly says, yeah, I'm down to work with WWE. Dude tried to buy WWE. He's always just trying to look for a friend. He's kind of, Triple H is like, no. It's like, no. But yeah, and then, Maxwell Jacob Freeman took it upon himself to, pretty much say this stuff, I'll be here, which didn't last, which didn't age well. Yeah, then he, going off on going off on Carlos Silva. Yeah, but the thing was, this was set in stone 2 weeks in advance, because on March 26th, uh, MJF and Dolph Ziggler was already, I gotta, damn it, Nick Nemeth was already talked about. March 26th of this year, it was already talked about. So for them to just randomly, now, and mind you, like the contractual commitments weren't even acted upon, like this is out of nowhere. None of the stars were expecting this was just a petty rug pull from them, and it's unfortunate. It's just like this right here. Now mind you, this is March 26th. Yep, March 26th of this year. So which means that they were building on this for 2 weeks, create a pro. They were building on this for 2 weeks, 2 whole weeks. 2 semanas, 2 weeks. So this isn't some sort of like, well, this is out of nowhere. No, no, no. This was purpose. This was deliberate. And I stand on that. This isn't just an accident. This is, they waited for that to happen, and then they pull the rug. But that's wrong and petty. And Gail Kim said it. Dolph Ziggler, he disagreed with it. MJF, he crashed out, which he crashed out on social media, which is pretty funny whenever he does. But yeah. I just wanted to talk about that because that's really unfortunate, and then apparently MJF was actually planned to face Bear Bronson at GCW in March, but TNA blocked it. This is just a whole bunch of unfortunate events. But I'm most upset about Leon Slater versus Ricochet. That really upset me. April 16th, man, 3P, man, out of here, bro. That is so irritating. This tribalism, it's like, and I feel like this tribalism, this one-sided tribalism is making the mentally ill diehard fans even more mentally ill. Because like, for example, I'll see someone criticize one thing about another promotion. They say, well, like for example, I saw someone comment under WWE's post, yeah, this segment is bad. Watch AEW. I'm like, okay, and for someone who watches all promotions like I do, I see you as mentally ill if you do that. I don't know, man. People just aren't really allowed to enjoy multiple things at once. But yeah, oh man, the pettiness just never stops. There's always something going on with these people in the wrestling space, dude. It gives me an endless amount of content since I'm going to be doing this full time. But dude, I don't like this stuff, because it's depressing. It truly is, man. Support Brian and Creative Pro Wrestler. They got screwed here. They really did. But yeah, that's all the news that was about this topic, at least. But yeah, 2 weeks of build just kind of went to 2 weeks of build for nothing, and everyone got screwed. I feel bad for Brian Myers, Kurt Hawkins. I mean, I felt bad for him when he was losing I remember his gimmick was to lose 200 matches in a row just to win the big one at WrestleMania 35. That was nice. But yeah, that's about it.